Tonight, as the world quiets and the darkness settles around you like a gentle blanket, we'll journey into a realm that exists all around us yet remains largely unseen. It is a world of silent witnesses of ancient beings that have shaped our planet for hundreds of millions of years. They stand tall in forests, sway gently in meadows, and cling to the harshest cliffs. They transform sunlight into sustenance, clean our air, and provide the very foundation of life on Earth. Tonight, we'll explore the secret lives of plants. As you rest, imagine yourself becoming smaller, lighter, drifting down to the level of grass stems and flower stalks. The plant world opens up before you, not as a static green backdrop, but as a living, breathing community filled with constant communication, adaptation, and surprising intelligence. Plants may appear motionless to our hurried human eyes, but in their own time frame, they are in perpetual motion, growing, responding, sensing, and even remembering. Plants have inhabited Earth for over 400 million years, adapting to every environment, from scorching deserts to frozen tundras, from mountain peaks to the depths of lakes and oceans. They were here long before the first humans walked the planet, breathing life into the atmosphere, creating the conditions that would eventually allow animals to evolve. And through it all, they developed sophisticated systems for survival without the luxury of running away from danger. In the gentle darkness of night, a forest is not sleeping but whispering. Through an intricate network of fungal threads called mycorrhizae, trees communicate with one another, sharing nutrients and information. These fungal connections link roots of neighboring trees, creating what scientists now call the Wood Wide Web, an underground internet where chemical signals and resources flow between plants. Through this network, a tree under attack by insects can warn its neighbors, prompting them to produce defensive compounds before the insects reach them. When a Douglas fir is injured, it releases volatile compounds that signal danger to other trees nearby. The neighboring trees don't simply hear this message, they respond by producing their own protective chemicals. This happens without nerves, without a brain, yet the forest acts as a community, protecting its members through an ancient form of communication that predates our own nervous systems by hundreds of millions of years. Beneath the soil, the roots of plants are not merely anchors or straws for water, they are sensory organs of extraordinary sophistication. A single rye plant may have more than 14 million root tips, each one sensing moisture, gravity, pressure, nitrogen, phosphorus, salt, and dozens of micronutrients. They can detect and avoid toxic substances. They can distinguish their own roots from those of their neighbors and even from those of their close relatives. Root tips explore their environment much like animals explore theirs, growing toward beneficial conditions and away from harmful ones. They do this through a region called the root cap, where specialized cells sense the world and guide the growing root. Inside this cap is a group of cells known as the quiescent center, where stem cells divide slowly, giving rise to all the different cell types needed by the growing root. This center serves as a kind of command post, integrating information and determining which direction to grow. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the slow, purposeful growth of roots through the soil. Each movement is deliberate, each turn a decision based on countless signals received and processed. Unlike animals, plants cannot flee from danger or move quickly toward resources. Instead, they solve problems through growth, sending their tissues in directions that maximize their chances of survival. Above ground, leaves turn toward the sun in a process called phototropism. This isn't simply a mechanical response, but a complex series of events triggered by blue light striking special receptors in the plant. These receptors, called phototropins, activate pathways that cause certain plant cells to elongate faster than others, creating the gentle bend toward the light. The plant is not just growing, it is orienting itself in space, positioning its solar panels, its leaves, to capture maximum energy. In the stillness of night, plants continue their silent work. While many processes slow, others accelerate. It's during darkness that many plants undergo the most dramatic growth spurts, extending stems, unfurling new leaves, and even flowering. The night jasmine opens its fragrant blooms only after sunset, releasing perfume into the evening air to attract night-flying moths for pollination. The evening primrose unfolds its delicate yellow petals as the sun goes down, completing the process in less than a minute, one of the few plant movements visible to the naked human eye. Plants mark time without clocks, sensing the length of day and night through special photoreceptors called phytochromes. These molecular timekeepers help plants determine when to flower, when to drop leaves, when to break dormancy. A cherry tree knows when winter has passed, not simply by temperature, but by tracking the number of cold days it has experienced, ensuring it doesn't bloom during a brief winter warm spell only to have its flowers killed by a returning frost. The mimosa plant, sometimes called the sensitive plant, dramatically demonstrates plant awareness. Touch one of its compound leaves gently with your finger and the leaflets quickly fold together, then the entire leaf droops downward, a defensive response to potential herbivores. But the mimosa is not merely reactive, it can learn. If you drop water on it repeatedly, it initially closes its leaves each time, but eventually it determines that the water drops pose no threat and stops responding to them. When disturbed by something new, however, it closes promptly. The mimosa has a form of memory. This memory exists without neurons or a brain. Instead, plants use calcium waves, similar to the electrical signals in our nervous system, and a variety of hormones and proteins to store and recall information. A Venus flytrap counts the touches on its trigger hairs, snapping shut only after 2 touches within about 20 seconds, a simple form of arithmetic that prevents wasting energy on false alarms like raindrops. As you continue to rest, envision the slow dance of plant growth. A sunflower turning its face to follow the sun's arc across the sky, not passively but actively, with the eastern side of its stem growing faster in the morning and the western side growing faster in the afternoon. This differential growth creates a gentle swing from east to west, allowing the flower to track the sun with remarkable precision. Plants sense gravity through the specialized cells containing starch grains called amyloplasts. When a plant is tipped sideways, these heavy grains settle to the bottom of the cells, signaling the plant to redirect growth. This is why a toppled seedling will gradually bend upward, finding its way back to vertical growth even in complete darkness. The plant knows which way is up without seeing the sky. The relationship between plants and animals has shaped the evolution of both groups for millions of years. Flowers didn't always exist on Earth. They appeared relatively recently, about 130 million years ago. Their colors, shapes, and scents evolved not for human appreciation, but to attract specific pollinators: bees, butterflies, moths, bats, birds, and even some small mammals. The orchid family exemplifies this intricate coevolution. Some orchid species have flowers shaped exactly like female bees or wasps, complete with markings and sometimes even pheromones that mimic those of the female insects. Male bees or wasps attempt to mate with these convincing floral decoys and, in the process, transfer pollen from one flower to another. The plant has created an elaborate illusion, a form of biological artistry aimed at ensuring its reproduction. Other plants recruit animal defenders through similarly sophisticated methods. When caterpillars begin chewing on a tobacco plant, the damaged leaves release volatile compounds that attract predatory insects like wasps, which come to feed on the caterpillars. The plant is effectively calling for bodyguards, sending out chemical SOS signals that summon specific helpers. Acacia trees in Africa have a remarkable partnership with ants. The trees provide hollow thorns as housing and produce nectar from special glands to feed the ants. In return, the ant colonies aggressively defend their host tree against browsing animals, even large ones like giraffes. If a giraffe begins eating the acacia's leaves, the ants swarm out and bite the animal's sensitive mouth and tongue, usually causing it to move on to less well-defended trees. In the Amazon rainforest, certain trees increase the tannin content in their leaves when herbivores begin feeding on neighboring trees. They detect the volatile warning signals released by their damaged neighbors and preemptively boost their chemical defenses. The forest is engaged in constant chemical conversation, sharing information about threats and resources. Some plants can even recognize their relatives. When grown near siblings, plants from seeds of the same mother plant, many species reduce the growth of competitive root systems and allocate more resources to growing taller and producing more leaves and seeds. But when grown near unrelated plants of the same species, they aggressively expand their root systems to secure limited soil resources. They can distinguish self from non-self, kin from stranger. As night deepens, imagine the silent chemistry occurring within each leaf. Photosynthesis has paused in the darkness, but respiration continues, releasing the energy stored during daylight. Inside the cells, mitochondria, the same energy-producing structures found in our own cells, extract energy from sugars created during the day. Plants and animals share this fundamental process, a reminder of our deep evolutionary connection. The water movement within plants continues day and night, drawn upward from the roots through the narrow tubes called xylem. This movement occurs without any pumping mechanism. Instead, it relies on the cohesive and adhesive properties of water molecules and the pool created by evaporation from the leaves, a process called transpiration. In tall trees, this passive system can lift water more than 100 meters against gravity, a feat of natural engineering that human technology struggles to match without mechanical pumps. In the soil, plants engage in complex relationships with microorganisms. The area immediately surrounding a root, called the rhizosphere, teems with specialized bacteria and fungi that the plant recruits through chemicals secreted from its roots. Some of these microbes convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms the plant can use. Others help defend against pathogens or break down minerals into accessible nutrients. The plant nurtures this microbial community, providing carbon-rich compounds in exchange for these services. Certain plants form even more intimate partnerships with bacteria. Legumes like peas, beans, and clover develop nodules on their roots that house nitrogen-fixing bacteria. The plant provides sugars and a protected environment. The bacteria provide nitrogen compounds essential for growth. This mutualistic relationship is so successful that legumes can thrive in nitrogen-poor soils where other plants struggle. Forests take this cooperation to an ecosystem scale. Through the mycorrhizal network, the largest and oldest trees, sometimes called mother trees, can direct resources to younger trees growing in deep shade. These elder trees send carbon, nitrogen, and other nutrients through the fungal connections to seedlings, increasing their chances of survival. When a mother tree is dying, it may release a surge of resources into the network, a final gift to the forest community. In the understory of a forest, plants face the challenge of growing in deep shade. Many have developed specialized adaptations to capture what little light filters through the canopy. Some produce different types of leaves depending on light conditions. Others adjust the concentration of chlorophyll or the orientation of their leaves to maximize light capture. Woodland plants like trilliums and bloodroot emerge early in spring before the tree canopy leaves out, taking advantage of the brief window of abundant sunlight to grow, flower, and set seed before returning to dormancy. Plants have evolved to manipulate the behavior of animals in remarkable ways. Fruits offer a nutritious reward to animals that eat them and disperse their seeds. Many seeds not only survive passage through an animal's digestive tract, but actually require it for germination. The hard seed coats are partially broken down by digestive acids, allowing water to penetrate and trigger sprouting once the seed is deposited, complete with fertilizer some distance from the parent plant. Some seeds have developed mechanical means of dispersal. The touch-me-not plant, also called jewelweed, produces seed pods that explosively burst when touched, flinging seeds up to several meters away. Maple trees create winged seeds that spiral downward like helicopters, catching the wind to travel far from the parent tree. Dandelion seeds float on feathery parachutes, sometimes traveling for miles on air currents. In deserts, plants face the dual challenges of intense heat and scarce water. Cacti and other succulents have evolved specialized water storage tissues and reduced their leaves to spines to minimize water loss. Their skin is covered with a waxy cuticle that further reduces evaporation. Many desert plants open their stomata, the tiny pores used for gas exchange, only at night when temperatures are lower and humidity higher, a reversal of the pattern seen in plants from more temperate regions. The creosote bush of North American deserts may be among the longest-lived organisms on Earth. As the plant ages, its center dies while the outer branches continue to grow outward in a ring. These rings of creosote bushes can be extremely old. One ring in the Mojave Desert, nicknamed King Clone, has been growing for an estimated 11,800 years, making it older than the Egyptian pyramids. In contrast to these desert survivors, some plants complete their entire life cycle in a matter of weeks. Desert ephemerals germinate, grow, flower, and set seed during the brief, rainy periods that occur in arid regions, then die, leaving only seeds to wait for the next rain, which may not come for years. These seeds can remain viable for decades, a form of temporal escape from harsh conditions. Plants have developed countless specialized adaptations to survive in extreme environments. Mangroves grow in salty coastal waters, solving the problem of salt stress by either excluding salt at their roots, secreting excess salt through specialized glands in their leaves, or sequestering it in older leaves that the plant then sheds. Snow plants push up through mountain snowfields, generating heat through the cellular respiration to melt their way to the surface. Resurrection plants can dry out completely, appearing dead, then revive when water returns, sometimes after years of dormancy. As you drift deeper toward sleep, consider the silent sentinels of our world, the oldest living trees. The bristlecone pines of California's White Mountains have survived for more than 5,000 years. They have stood the witness to the rise and fall of human civilizations, to climate shift and ecological changes. Their gnarled forms tell the story of countless storms weathered, of harsh winters and baking summers endured. The oldest known individual tree is a bristlecone pine nicknamed Methuselah, estimated to be over 4,800 years old. It was already an ancient tree when the pyramids were built, when writing was invented, when agriculture was in its infancy. Its location is kept secret to protect it from human visitors who might inadvertently damage it. Even older than individual trees are clonal colonies, groups of genetically identical trees connected by a single root system. The Pando Aspen Grove in Utah consists of about 47,000 trunks, all part of a single organism that has been growing for an estimated 80,000 years. From the surface, it appears to be a forest of individual trees, but underground, they are all connected, all part of the same ancient being. These long-lived plants challenge our human-centered perception of time. They operate on timescales that make our lives seem brief flashes in comparison. The giant sequoias of California can live for 3,000 years, the coastal redwoods for more than 2,000. These forest giants create their own microclimate, capturing the fog in their upper branches and funneling it to the forest floor, supporting entire communities of plants and animals. Plants communicate not only through chemical signals and fungal networks, but also through sound. Recent research has shown that plants can produce and respond to sound waves. Roots of growing corn make gentle clicking sounds as their cells expand. These sounds travel through the soil and may be detected by neighboring plants. When the sound of a caterpillar chewing is played to some plants, they increase production of chemical defenses, suggesting they can hear in their own way. The roots of plants don't grow randomly through soil but follow paths of least resistance, sensing and responding to their environment in real time. When a root tip encounters a rock or other obstacle, it doesn't simply push against it but grows around it, finding the easiest path forward. This requires a continuous integration of multiple types of sensory information: touch, moisture, gravity, and chemical gradients. Some plants can detect vibrations. The Venus flytrap, for instance, has sensitive trigger hairs inside its trap leaves. When an insect touches these hairs, the plant registers the disturbance and begins a countdown. If a second touch occurs, within about 20 seconds, the trap snaps shut. This counting ability prevents the plant from wasting energy on non-prey items like raindrops or fallen debris. Plants can perceive light not just for photosynthesis, but in ways that inform their development and behavior. Seedlings grown in darkness become etiolated, stretched tall with pale stems and underdeveloped leaves. They are searching for light, allocating their limited resources to growing upward as quickly as possible. Once they reach light, they undergo a dramatic transformation, developing chlorophyll, strengthening their stems, and expanding their leaves, a complete change in growth strategy triggered by light detection. The sensitivity of plants to light is remarkable. Some seeds are so light-sensitive that even moonlight can inhibit their germination. Others require specific day-length conditions to flower, allowing them to synchronize their reproduction with particular seasons. This ability to measure the day length is found in plants from all climates and has evolved independently many times, suggesting its fundamental importance to plant success. In the quiet of night, seeds rest in soil, waiting for the right conditions to germinate. A seed is not merely dormant, it is actively sensing its environment. Some need specific temperature patterns that signal the passing of winter, others require fire or smoke, chemicals to wake from dormancy. Still others need their hard coats scarified by passage through an animal's digestive system. Each solution has evolved to ensure the seed sprouts at the time and place most favorable for its survival. When conditions are right, the seed undergoes a complex sequence of events. Water enters, metabolic processes accelerate, and the embryonic plant emerges, first sending down a root to secure water, then pushing up a shoot toward the light. This moment of germination is a critical transition from the protected state of the seed to the more vulnerable but growing plant. As you continue to rest, imagine the chemical symphony occurring in every plant. Hormones like auxin direct growth, telling stems to elongate and roots where to branch. Gibberellins signal seeds to germinate and stems to grow taller. Abscisic acid helps plants survive drought by closing stomata and maintaining dormancy. Ethylene triggers fruit ripening and leaf drop. These and other plant hormones work together in complex feedback loops, constantly adjusting the plant's development to changing conditions. Unlike animals, plants can regenerate entire organisms from small pieces of tissue. A leaf, cutting from a begonia, can develop roots and shoots, growing into a complete plant genetically identical to its parent. This remarkable regenerative ability underlies much of how humans propagate plants for agriculture and horticulture. Some plants, like the kalanchoe, produce tiny plantlets along their leaf margins. These eventually drop off and take root, a form of asexual reproduction that allows rapid colonization of favorable habitats. Plant cells retain a property called totipotency, the ability to develop into any cell type needed for a complete plant. This cellular flexibility is what allows plants to regenerate so effectively and is also the basis for modern plant biotechnology, where single cells can be cultured to produce entire plants. In many parts of the world, seasonal changes trigger dramatic transformations in plant communities. Deciduous forests showcase this most visibly when autumn arrives. As days shorten and temperatures drop, trees begin breaking down the chlorophyll in their leaves, revealing the yellow and orange pigments that were there all along, but masked by the dominant green. Some trees produce additional red pigments called anthocyanins, painting the landscape in fiery colors before shedding their leaves entirely. This leaf drop is not a passive dying, but an active process called abscission. The tree forms special separation layers at the base of each leaf stalk, slowly cutting the leaf off from the vascular system and creating a protective seal over the wound before the leaf falls. By reclaiming valuable nutrients from the leaves before discarding them, trees prepare for winter while reducing their respiratory demands during the cold months when photosynthesis would be limited. Winter dormancy is a state of reduced metabolism, not complete inactivity. Even in the coldest months, cells maintain essential functions and some processes continue at slow rates. Buds formed the previous summer contain the embryonic leaves and flowers for the coming spring, waiting in a protected state until environmental cues signal that it's safe to emerge. Some plants require winter cold to flower properly the following season, a process called vernalization. Winter wheat, many fruit trees, and spring flowering bulbs like tulips need a certain duration of cold temperatures to release hormonal blocks on flowering. Without this cold period, they remain vegetative or produce fewer flowers, an adaptation that prevents them from blooming too early in regions with cold winters. Beneath winter snow, some plants continue to photosynthesize at low rates. Evergreen forest plants like wintergreen and pipsissewa have special adaptations that allow their photosynthetic machinery to function at near freezing temperatures, giving them a head start when spring arrives compared to plants that die back completely. Spring's arrival triggers an explosion of growth as plants emerge from dormancy. The timing is critical. Emerge too early and late frosts may kill tender growth. Too late and the plant misses the opportunity to capture spring sunshine before tree canopies leaf out. Many spring ephemerals, woodland wildflowers like trilliums, bloodroot and spring beauties, complete most of their life cycle in the brief window between snowmelt and canopy closure. Plants time these seasonal transitions through a combination of temperature sensing, day-length measurement, and internal circadian rhythms. These mechanisms are so reliable that phenology, the study of seasonal events in plants and animals, can serve as a biological calendar, marking the progression of the year with flowering times and leaf emergence. In tropical regions where seasons are defined more by rainfall than temperature, plants show different patterns of dormancy and growth. Some tropical trees shed their leaves during the dry season to reduce water loss, while others maintain evergreen canopies year-round, taking advantage of consistent temperatures and sunlight. The diversity of tropical forests reflects the multitude of strategies plants have evolved to thrive in environments with different limiting factors than temperate regions. As human beings, we are utterly dependent on plants. They provide the oxygen we breathe, the food we eat, the medicines that heal us, the fibers for our clothing, the materials for our shelter. Our earliest ancestors learned which plants could be eaten, which could heal, and which should be avoided. This accumulated knowledge formed the foundation of agriculture, medicine, and much of human culture. Modern pharmacology still relies heavily on compounds first identified in plants. Aspirin derived from willow bark, morphine from poppies, taxol from yew trees, quinine from cinchona bark. These and thousands of other plant-derived compounds form the backbone of our pharmacopoeia. Plants produce these chemicals not for human benefit, but as defenses against herbivores and pathogens, or to attract pollinators and seed dispersers. Their complex biochemistry evolved over millions of years to solve the particular problems plants face as stationary organisms. Even as you rest, the plants around your home are silently working, converting carbon dioxide to oxygen, filtering dust from the air, and in some cases, removing volatile organic compounds and other pollutants. House plants have been shown to improve indoor air quality and may contribute to better human health and cognitive function in the spaces where they grow. The relationship between plants and human health extends beyond medicine and air quality. Gardens and green spaces have been shown to reduce stress, improve mood, and accelerate healing. Hospital patients with views of trees recover faster than those looking at building walls. Children with access to natural play areas show better concentration and reduced symptoms of attention disorders. These benefits may stem from our evolutionary history as creatures who developed in close connection with the natural world. In forests, trees release compounds called phytoncides, volatile organic compounds that are part of their defense system against pathogens. When humans breathe these compounds during walks in the forest, our bodies respond with increased activity of natural killer cells, a type of white blood cell that helps fight infections and cancer. This practice of forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku has become recognized as a form of preventive health care in some countries. Plants form the foundation of all terrestrial ecosystems, creating the structures and resources that allow animals, fungi, and microorganisms to exist. The first plants to colonize land about 470 million years ago transformed the planet's surface, accelerating the weathering of rocks, creating soil, and beginning the cycle of terrestrial life that continues today. As you drift toward dreams, imagine the ancient history of plants on Earth. The first land plants were small moss-like organisms hugging the ground near water. Over millions of years, they evolved vascular systems to transport water and nutrients, allowing them to grow taller. Ferns and their relatives dominated for millions of years before the evolution of seeds provided a new reproductive strategy that opened drier habitats to plant colonization. Conifers and other gymnosperms became the dominant trees of the Mesozoic era, creating forests that fed dinosaurs and other ancient creatures. Flowering plants, the angiosperms, appeared relatively recently in geological time, about 140 million years ago, but quickly diversified into the most species-rich group of plants on Earth. Their coevolution with insect and animal pollinators and seed dispersers created webs of relationship that form the foundation of modern terrestrial ecosystems. Throughout this long history, plants have survived 5 mass extinction events, each time recovering and diversifying into new forms. They have demonstrated remarkable resilience, adapting to changing climates and continental movements, to the emergence of new herbivores and the loss of old ones. The plant world we see today is the result of this long evolutionary journey, a living museum of adaptation and survival. As the night deepens and you settle more fully into rest, know that the plants outside your window are still sensing, responding, and communicating in their silent language. The trees may be sharing resources through their root networks, warning each other of dangers or supporting their offspring growing in their shade. The flowers have closed their petals but are still metabolizing, preparing for tomorrow's display to attract pollinators. The grasses are growing imperceptibly upward from their bases, a strategy that allows them to survive grazing. The world of plants operates largely beyond our direct perception, too slow or too subtle for our senses to detect without instruments. Yet this green realm is alive with activity, with purpose, with something that, while different from animal consciousness, demonstrates a form of awareness and responsiveness that deserves our appreciation and respect. Plants solve problems and make decisions without a brain or nervous system. They integrate information from many sources: light levels, gravity, moisture, nutrients, temperature, touch, and chemical signals from other organisms. They process this information through complex biochemical networks and respond with remarkable precision. A seed knows which way to send its root and which way to send its shoot, even when planted upside down. A vine can sense a support structure nearby and adjust its growth to reach it, even when the support is moved. A tree can detect which of its branches receives the most sunlight and allocate resources preferentially to that area. Human intelligence tends to view plant behavior through the lens of our own experience, often missing the elegant solutions plants have evolved. For example, while we might run from danger, a plant must face it where it stands. Instead of muscles and movement, plants deploy chemical factories capable of producing thousands of different compounds. When attacked by a specific insect, a plant can manufacture precisely the defensive chemical needed to deter that particular species. This targeted response conserves energy while providing effective protection. The complexity of plant chemistry far exceeds what most animals can produce. The yew tree creates Taxol, a compound so intricate that when scientists first wanted to use it as a cancer treatment, they couldn't synthesize it in the laboratory and had to harvest it from trees. A single plant may produce thousands of different molecules, many with structures so complex that human pharmaceutical companies struggle to replicate them. This chemical sophistication represents a different kind of intelligence, one built on molecular creativity rather than neural connections. As darkness envelops the world outside your window, consider how plants experience their environment through chemistry. When a rose detects the pheromones of aphids nearby, it begins producing compounds that make its tissues less nutritious and more difficult to digest. At the same time, it releases volatile chemicals that attract ladybugs, natural predators of aphids. The rose has no eyes to see the approaching threat, no ears to hear it, no nose to smell it in the conventional sense, yet it perceives, processes information, and responds appropriately. This chemical awareness extends to recognizing self from non-self. Roots of the sea rocket, a coastal plant, can distinguish between roots of related plants and those of strangers. When encountering roots from unrelated sea rockets, the plant increases its root growth to compete for resources. But when detecting roots from siblings, it restrains its root growth, avoiding competition with its relatives. This keen recognition suggests a sophisticated awareness of genetic relationships, all without a brain to process the information. As you continue to rest, imagine a field of sunflowers following the arc of the sun from east to west throughout the day. This solar tracking, or heliotropism, is not simply a passive response to light. The plant actively regulates the growth of cells on opposite sides of the stem, creating a bending movement that maximizes light capture. At night, the flowers reset, turning back to face the east in anticipation of the morning sun. The sunflower is not just reacting to its environment, it is predicting future conditions and preparing for them. Some plants demonstrate what appears to be a form of memory. The Venus flytrap, as mentioned earlier, counts stimuli to its trigger hairs, closing only after 2 touches within a short time frame. But this counting ability goes further. The trap adjusts the speed of closure based on what triggered it. If an insect continues to struggle after being caught, the trap seals more tightly and begins secreting digestive enzymes. If no further movement is detected, perhaps because a non-prey item triggered the closure, the trap will eventually reopen without wasting digestive resources. The ability to learn and remember appears in other plants as well. When the sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, is repeatedly exposed to a non-threatening stimulus like a drop of water, it eventually stops folding its leaves in response. This is not simply exhaustion or damage to the response mechanism. The plant still closes promptly when exposed to a new threat. This ability to habituate to harmless stimuli while maintaining vigilance against genuine dangers demonstrates a simple form of learning. In your garden, climbing plants like morning glories or sweet peas reach out with tendrils that move in slow circular motions until they contact something they can grasp. This movement, called circumnutation, is not random but a deliberate exploration of the surrounding space. Once a tendril finds a support, it coils around it, then shortens and thickens, pulling the plant upward with surprising strength. The tendril can even adjust its coiling direction based on the thickness and orientation of the support structure. Plant roots show similar exploratory behavior underground. They don't simply grow downward but navigate through soil with remarkable precision. When a root tip encounters a pocket of toxic metals or salts, it changes direction to avoid the hazard. When it finds a rich source of nutrients, it proliferates branches in that area to maximize absorption. These decisions occur at the root tip in a region called the meristem, where cells communicate through chemical and electrical signals to coordinate their growth and direction. The flow of information through plants occurs in multiple ways. Some signals travel through the vascular system, the xylem and phloem that transport water and nutrients throughout the plant. These signals might include hormones like auxin, which can move from cell to cell through specialized transport proteins, or larger molecules carried in the phloem stream. Other signals move through the air as volatile compounds that can travel from one part of the plant to another or even to neighboring plants. Perhaps most fascinating is the discovery that plants can transmit electrical signals similar to the action potentials in animal nervous systems. When a leaf is damaged, an electrical wave spreads through the plant at about 1 centimeter per second, alerting distant tissues to the threat. While much slower than the nerve signals in your body, these electrical messages allow for whole plant responses to localized stimuli. A caterpillar nibbling on one leaf can trigger defensive responses throughout the entire plant within minutes. In some plants, these electrical signals can create remarkably fast movements. The leaves of the telegraph plant, Codariocalyx motorius, have small leaflets that rotate and twitch in response to light, temperature, and touch. These movements are driven by specialized cells that change their water pressure rapidly in response to electrical signals, creating visible motion that can occur within seconds, fast enough to be noticed by human eyes. Even more impressive is the water wheel plant, Aldrovanda vesiculosa, a carnivorous relative of the Venus flytrap that lives in fresh water. Its underwater traps snap shut in less than 100 milliseconds, one of the fastest movements in the plant kingdom. This speed is necessary to capture small aquatic invertebrates before they can escape. The trap works through the same electrical triggering system as the Venus flytrap, but has evolved to operate even more rapidly. As you drift deeper toward sleep, consider the deep time perspective of plant evolution. The first plants to colonize land faced enormous challenges: desiccation, temperature extremes, gravity, and UV radiation. Their solutions to these problems established the foundation for all terrestrial life. They developed waterproof cuticles to prevent water loss, vascular systems to transport fluids against gravity, and specialized compounds to protect against radiation damage. The most ancient plant lineages still surviving today, the mosses, liverworts, and hornworts, lack the vascular tissues of more advanced plants. They remain small and close to the ground, requiring consistently moist environments to reproduce. Their sperm must swim through water to reach eggs, limiting their independence from aquatic habitats. Yet these simple plants have survived for hundreds of millions of years, persisting alongside their more complex relatives through major extinction events and climate changes. Ferns represent the next major evolutionary step, developing true vascular systems that allow them to grow taller and colonize drier habitats. They dominated Earth's forests for millions of years during the Carboniferous period, some growing as tall as trees. Their remains, buried and compressed over geologic time, formed many of the coal deposits we mine today. When you warm your home with coal, you are releasing the solar energy captured by ferns more than 300 million years ago. The evolution of seeds marked another revolutionary adaptation in plant history. Seeds contain an embryonic plant, a food supply, and a protective coat, allowing plants to disperse their offspring far from the parent and to survive unfavorable periods in a dormant state. The earliest seed plants, the gymnosperms, including conifers, cycads, and ginkgos, came to dominate many terrestrial ecosystems, creating the forests that dinosaurs roamed. Flowering plants, the angiosperms, appeared relatively late in plant evolutionary history, but quickly diversified into the most species-rich plant group. Their success stems largely from their reproductive innovation, flowers that attract animal pollinators and fruits that encourage seed dispersal by animals. This partnership with the animal kingdom allowed flowering plants to spread their genes more efficiently and to evolve rapidly in response to changing conditions. The diversity of flower forms reflects the diversity of their pollinators. Flowers pollinated by bees often have landing platforms, bright colors, especially blue and yellow, which bees can see well, and nectar guides, patterns visible in ultraviolet light that direct the insect to the reward. Flowers pollinated by birds are frequently red, a color birds see well but many insects don't, tubular to accommodate a bird's beak, and produce copious nectar to reward their energy-hungry visitors. Flowers pollinated by moths or bats often open at night, are pale in color to be visible in darkness, and release strong fragrances to attract their nocturnal pollinators. Some orchids have evolved flowers that mimic the appearance and scent of female insects so precisely that male insects attempt to mate with them, transferring pollen in the process. The relationship between flowering plants and their pollinators has created an endless variety of floral forms, colors, and scents, a gallery of evolutionary art displayed in every meadow and garden. The intimacy of these plant-pollinator relationships often results in extreme specialization. The Darwin's orchid of Madagascar has a nectar spur nearly 30 centimeters long, leading Charles Darwin to predict the existence of a moth with a proboscis long enough to reach the nectar at its base. His prediction was validated decades after his death with the discovery of De Morgan's Sphinx moth, which indeed has a proboscis of the necessary length. The orchid and moth have co-evolved, each adapting to the other's features over millions of years. As night surrounds you, envision the silent movement of pollen from flower to flower, billions of tiny packages containing plant sperm carried on the bodies of insects, birds, bats, or the wind itself. This transfer of genetic material is the plant equivalent of mating, resulting in seeds that combine traits from both parent plants. The genetic recombination that results from sexual reproduction allows plants to adapt to changing environments more rapidly than would be possible through asexual reproduction alone. Many plants maintain the ability to reproduce both sexually through seeds and asexually through runners, suckers, or other vegetative means. This dual strategy allows them to balance the benefits of genetic diversity with the advantages of preserving successful genetic combinations. In stable environments, asexual reproduction allows a successful plant to clone itself rapidly, while in changing or stressful conditions, sexual reproduction creates varied offspring with different combinations of traits, increasing the chances that some will survive. Some plants have evolved to manipulate even the timing of their reproduction in response to environmental conditions. Bamboos of many species flower synchronously after decades of vegetative growth. A single species might grow for 20, 60, or even 120 years, then suddenly flower all at once across its entire range, produce seeds, and die. This mass flowering and seeding, called masting, overwhelms seed predators, ensuring that some seeds survive to germinate. The triggers for this synchronized flowering remain mysterious but appear to involve some form of internal clock combined with environmental cues. The aging process in plants differs fundamentally from animals. While animals generally have fixed lifespans determined by genetic programs, many plants can potentially live indefinitely. Trees do not die of old age in the way mammals do. Instead, they typically succumb to disease, injury, or environmental stress. The cells at a tree's growing tips, the meristems, maintain their embryonic quality throughout the plant's life, continuously producing new, young cells. In this way, parts of even a 1,000-year-old tree are actually quite young. This capacity for indefinite growth enables the extreme longevity seen in some trees. The Great Basin bristlecone pines of the American West include individuals that have been growing continuously for more than 5,000 years. These ancient trees germinated before the invention of writing, before the construction of the pyramids, before the Bronze Age. Their gnarled forms record millennia of harsh mountain conditions, cold, drought, wind, and fire, yet they continue to produce new needles, cones, and seeds each year. Even more extreme are clonally plant colonies like the quaking aspen groves of North America. What appears to be a forest of individual trees may actually be a single organism connected by a shared root system, with each tree a genetically identical stem sprouting from the roots. The Pando aspen colony in Utah consists of more than 40,000 stems covering 106 acres, all part of a single plant estimated to be at least 80,000 years old, potentially the oldest living organism on Earth. The secret to this longevity lies partly in plants' modular construction. Unlike animals, which have centralized vital organs, plants have a decentralized structure. They can lose substantial portions of their bodies to herbivores, disease, or environmental damage and still survive. A tree might lose branches to a storm or have its trunk hollowed by fungus, yet continue growing for centuries. This resilience comes from the ability to compartmentalize damage, sealing off injured areas while continuing growth elsewhere. Another factor in plant longevity is their unique approach to dealing with DNA damage. Plant cells exposed to mutation-causing radiation or chemicals can activate a form of programmed cell death, eliminating the damaged cells before they can divide and spread mutations. Plants also maintain populations of stem cells in protected locations like root tips and shoot apical meristems. These stem cells divide relatively infrequently, reducing the chance of replication errors, but give rise to more rapidly dividing cells that form the plant's structures. As your consciousness drifts toward the edges of sleep, consider how plants experience time differently than we do. A day lily blooms for just 24 hours, while a bristlecone pine may live for millennia. The Titan arum, or corpse flower, can go a decade or more between bloomings, each lasting only a day or two. Cherry blossoms open for a week each spring, while the leaves of deciduous trees persist for a single growing season. Plants operate on multiple timescales simultaneously. The rapid response of a Venus flytrap, the daily rhythm of flowers opening and closing, the seasonal cycle of growth and dormancy, and the multi-year or even multi-decade reproductive cycles of some species. This different relationship with time is reflected in how plants respond to injury. When a branch breaks or a leaf is damaged, the plant doesn't experience pain as animals do. There is no evolutionary advantage to pain in an organism that cannot flee. Instead, plants detect damage and initiate repair processes or activate defensive mechanisms. They may seal off the damaged area, accelerate growth elsewhere, or produce chemical deterrents to prevent further attack. These responses happen on a time scale of minutes to days, slow by animal standards, but appropriate to the plant's needs and capabilities. In forests, time flows through the seasonal cycles of growth, dormancy, flowering, and fruiting, but also through the longer cycles of succession. After a disturbance like a fire or windstorm creates an opening in the forest, pioneer species quickly colonize the available space. These fast-growing plants thrive in full sunlight, but are eventually overshadowed by slower-growing, longer-lived trees. Over decades and centuries, the forest community changes, with different species dominating at different stages. This succession continues until the forest reaches a relatively stable state, the climax community, which may persist for centuries until the next major disturbance begins the cycle anew. Plant communities shape the world around them, creating habitats for countless other organisms. The stratification of a mature forest, from canopy to understory to shrub layer to forest floor, creates diverse niches for animals, fungi, and other plants. Each layer has different light levels, humidity, temperature patterns, and physical structure, supporting different species adapted to those specific conditions. Even individual plants can create microhabitats. The tank bromeliads of tropical forests collect water in the cups formed by their overlapping leaf bases, creating small aquatic ecosystems high above the ground. These miniature ponds host specialized communities of insects, crustaceans, algae, and sometimes even small frogs that complete their entire life cycles within the water held by the plant. In arid regions, nurse plants provide shelter for seedlings of other species. The shade cast by a desert shrub creates a cooler, moister microclimate that allows more sensitive plants to establish themselves. The nurse plant may eventually be replaced by the species it sheltered, a quiet sacrifice that enables the continuation of the plant community. Plants have not only adapted to their environments, but have fundamentally altered Earth's systems. The evolution of photosynthesis changed the composition of the atmosphere, gradually increasing oxygen levels and making possible the evolution of oxygen-breathing animals. Plants continue to regulate atmospheric gases today, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen, helping to stabilize Earth's climate. Forests influence rainfall patterns, their transpiration adding moisture to the air that later falls as precipitation, sometimes hundreds of miles away. Plant roots prevent soil erosion, holding the land in place against the forces of wind and water. They break down rock into soil, working alongside fungi and bacteria to create the foundation for terrestrial ecosystems. When plants die and decompose, they return nutrients to the soil, building fertility for future generations of plants and for the countless organisms that depend on them. In wetlands, plants perform vital ecosystem services, filtering pollutants from water, reducing flooding by slowing water flow, and providing habitat for fish, amphibians, and waterfowl. Mangrove forests along tropical coastlines protect inland areas from storm surges and tsunamis, their intricate root systems absorbing the energy of waves. Seagrass meadows in shallow marine waters capture and store carbon, provide nursery grounds for commercially important fish species, and stabilize coastal sediments. The human relationship with plants has shaped our species' development from our earliest beginnings. Our ancestors learned which plants provided food, medicine, fiber, and building materials through countless generations of observation and experimentation. This ethnobotanical knowledge allowed humans to inhabit diverse environments around the world, adapting their use of local plants to meet their needs. The development of agriculture approximately 10,000 years ago marked a pivotal shift in human history, changing our relationship with plants from one of gathering to one of cultivation. Early farmers selected plants with desirable traits, larger seeds, sweeter fruits, or more tender leaves, gradually domesticating wild species into the crops we know today. Modern corn bears little resemblance to its wild ancestor Teosinte with its small, hard seeds. Millennia of human selection have transformed it into one of the world's most productive and versatile food crops. Our dependence on plants extends far beyond food. The fibers of cotton, flax, hemp, and other plants clothe us. The wood of trees shelters us. Plant-derived medicines heal us. Paper made from plant fibers has carried human knowledge for millennia. Plants provide dyes, fragrances, spices, beverages, and countless other products that enrich our lives. The oxygen plants release sustains us with every breath. As the night deepens, consider the plants that have changed the course of human history. Cotton fueled the Industrial Revolution and was tragically intertwined with the history of slavery in the Americas. Coffee and tea created new social customs and trading networks that connected continents. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and nutmeg inspired voyages of exploration that redrew the map of the world. Rubber trees provided the material for tires, enabling the automotive age. Without plants, human civilization as we know it could not exist. The cultural significance of plants extends beyond their material uses. Flowers mark our celebrations and commemorate our losses. Trees symbolize strength, wisdom, and longevity in many cultural traditions. Gardens represent our attempt to create ordered beauty from nature's diversity. Plants appear in our art, literature, music, and spiritual practices across cultures and throughout history. The lotus in Buddhism, the sacred fig in Hinduism, the olive branch in Christianity, plants serve as powerful symbols in human meaning-making. In many indigenous cultures, plants are regarded not merely as resources but as persons, beings with their own forms of agency and awareness. Traditional ecological knowledge often includes practices of asking permission before harvesting plants and offering thanks for what is taken. These relationship-based approaches to plant use tend to promote sustainability and respect for the living world. As modern science reveals more about plant intelligence and communication, these traditional perspectives appear increasingly prescient. Modern botany has confirmed many traditional uses of plants while discovering new applications. Ethnobotanical research, the study of how people use plants, has led to the development of numerous pharmaceuticals, including many cancer treatments. Compounds first identified in plants serve as models for synthetic drugs, and some plant medicines remain irreplaceable, their complex chemistry too difficult to replicate in the laboratory. Plants continue to inspire technological innovation. The self-cleaning surface of the lotus leaf has prompted the development of paints and fabrics that repel water and dirt. The hook and loop structure of burdock burrs inspired the invention of Velcro. Wind turbine blades have been redesigned based on the tubercles on humpback whale flippers, which evolved to allow the whale to maneuver among kelp forests. The efficient energy capture of photosynthesis has inspired research into better solar cells. As human activities alter the planet's climate and ecosystems, plants face unprecedented challenges. Rising temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, and more frequent extreme weather events create conditions that many plants struggle to tolerate. Species adapted to specific climate niches may find their habitats disappearing. Those that disperse slowly may be unable to migrate to new suitable areas quickly enough. Yet plants have weathered planetary changes before. Through their evolutionary history, they have endured ice ages and warming periods, shifting continents and changing atmospheric composition. Their genetic diversity and adaptability have allowed them to survive in nearly every environment on Earth's surface, from scorching deserts to frigid mountains to brackish estuaries. Many plants show remarkable resilience in the face of challenging conditions. Some species can adjust their timing of flowering, leaf emergence, or dormancy in response to changing temperature and rainfall patterns. Others have broad tolerance ranges that allow them to thrive across diverse environments. Still others contain genetic diversity that may enable adaptation to new conditions through natural selection. Human activities can either hinder or help plants adapt to environmental changes. Habitat fragmentation creates barriers to plant migration, while pollution and overexploitation directly harm many species. Conversely, ecological restoration, seed banking, assisted migration, and habitat protection can support plant resilience. Indigenous land management practices like cultural burning can help maintain plant communities adapted to specific disturbance regimes. As you rest in the quietness of night, imagine the plants that have yet to be discovered. Scientists estimate that tens of thousands of plant species remain unknown to science, particularly in tropical regions with high biodiversity. Some of these undiscovered species may contain compounds with important medicinal properties or traits that could help crops withstand drought, pests, or disease. Others may play crucial ecological roles we don't yet understand. Each extinction removes possibilities from the world, potential medicines, foods, materials, and ecological relationships lost forever. Consider the deep mystery of plant consciousness. While plants lack brains and nervous systems as we understand them, they demonstrate awareness of and appropriate responses to their environment. They sense light, gravity, temperature, moisture, nutrients, touch, and chemical signals. They integrate this information and adjust their growth and biochemistry accordingly. They communicate with other plants and with soil organisms. They remember past events and prepare for future conditions. What is the nature of this awareness? It is clearly different from human or animal consciousness, yet it allows plants to solve complex problems and make decisions that enhance their survival and reproduction. Perhaps plant intelligence represents an entirely different evolutionary path to creating responsive, adaptive behavior, one based on biochemical and electrical signaling distributed throughout the organism rather than centralized in a brain. This decentralized intelligence offers certain advantages. Because plants lack a single vulnerable control center, they can lose substantial parts of their bodies without dying. Their modular construction allows them to continue growing and functioning even after significant damage. While slower than centralized neural processing, this distributed system provides resilience and adaptability suited to the plant way of life. Plants have much to teach us about resilience, efficiency, and sustainability. They capture energy from sunlight with remarkable efficiency, producing no waste and using only renewable resources. They adapt to changing conditions without abandoning their place in the ecosystem. They support countless other life forms, creating relationships of mutual benefit. They transform atmospheric carbon into living tissues, helping to balance the carbon cycle that human activities have disrupted. Around your home, whether in a rural landscape or urban setting, plants are working quietly as you sleep. They are filtering air pollution, moderating temperature extremes, absorbing stormwater, supporting wildlife, and providing countless other ecosystem services. A single large tree can transpire hundreds of liters of water in a day, cooling the surrounding air like a natural air conditioner. Its shade reduces the energy needed to cool buildings in summer, while its structure may block winter winds, reducing heating costs. Urban forests, the trees along streets, in parks, yards, and other green spaces, improve human health in multiple ways. They reduce air pollution, including ozone, particulate matter, and nitrogen oxides. They provide cooling that reduces heat-related illness during summer. They create spaces for physical activity and social interaction. They improve mental health, reducing stress and promoting cognitive restoration. These benefits are so significant that research shows correlations between neighborhood tree cover and measures of community health and well-being. In agriculture, our relationship with the plants continues to evolve. Modern farming practices often treat plants as passive production units rather than responsive living organisms. Chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides can disrupt the complex relationships between plants and soil microbiomes. Monocropping, growing a single plant species over large areas, reduces genetic diversity and increases vulnerability to pests and disease. Alternative approaches like agroecology and permaculture work with plant intelligence rather than against it. These systems use polycultures, multiple plant species growing together, to create synergistic relationships that reduce pest pressure and enhance soil fertility. They maintain genetic diversity by growing multiple varieties of each crop. They support beneficial insect and soil organisms that form mutualistic relationships with plants. These approaches recognize plants as active participants in agricultural systems, not merely passive resources to be extracted. Indigenous agricultural practices often incorporate sophisticated understanding of plant relationships. The Three Sisters planting of corn, beans, and squash, practiced by many Native American cultures, creates a mutually beneficial relationship among the three crops. Corn provides a structure for beans to climb. Beans fix nitrogen that enriches the soil for all three plants, and squash leaves shade the ground, suppressing weeds and reducing water loss through evaporation. This integrated approach works with the natural tendencies and capabilities of each plant. As scientific understanding of plant communication and behavior deepens, agricultural practices may evolve to better support plant intelligence. Farmers might time plantings and harvests to work with the plant's circadian rhythms, enhancing growth and reducing stress. They might select crop varieties that communicate effectively with beneficial soil microbes. They might design polycultures that facilitate positive plant-plant interactions through root exudates or airborne volatile compounds. The wisdom of plants is written in their genes, refined through millions of years of evolution. Their chemistry, their structure, their behavior all represent tested solutions to environmental challenges. By studying and respecting plant intelligence, humans gain access to this vast library of biological knowledge. The solutions we seek to environmental problems may already exist in the quiet innovations of the plant world. As sleep draws nearer, imagine yourself as part of the great web of plant relationships. The oxygen in your lungs was recently released from the leaves of plants. The food in your body was created through photosynthesis, whether directly in fruits and vegetables or indirectly through plants consumed by animals. Your home likely contains wood, cotton, linen, paper, medicines, and countless other plant-derived materials. You exist within a world shaped and sustained by plants. Plant awareness is increasing in scientific and popular understanding. Research into plant communication, memory, decision-making, and problem-solving continues to reveal new dimensions of plant intelligence. Books, documentaries, and other media share these discoveries with wider audiences, changing how people perceive and relate to the plant world. Some philosophers and ethicists have begun to consider the moral implications of plant sentience, not whether plants feel pain as animals do, but whether their forms of awareness and agency deserve ethical consideration. The plant world offers a different model of being, one based on rootedness rather than mobility, chemical communication rather than vocalization, slow response rather than quick reaction. Plants demonstrate that intelligence can take forms very different from our own. Their success, evidenced by their biomass dominance on Earth and their survival through multiple mass extinctions, suggests that their strategies are not inferior to those of animals, merely different. Plants excel at waiting. They wait for rain, for spring, for pollinators, for seed dispersers. They wait out fires, droughts, floods, and freezes. Their patience is not passive but preparatory, gathering resources, adjusting biochemistry, positioning growth to maximize future opportunities. In a human world that often values speed and immediate results, plants remind us of the power of patience, of the slow accumulation of small changes that lead to transformation. In the darkness of night, the plant world continues its quiet work. Sails divide at growing tips, stomata close to conserve moisture, flowers emit scent molecules to attract night-flying pollinators. Seeds wait in soil for conditions that trigger germination. The countless processes of plant life proceed at their own pace, neither hurried nor delayed by human observation. The diversity of plant forms represents an exploration of possibilities, an ongoing experiment in how to capture light, draw water from soil, reproduce, and survive in varied environments. From microscopic duckweed floating on pond surfaces to giant sequoias reaching for the sky, from spike moss hugging the ground to orchids perched on tropical tree branches, each growth form represents a successful strategy, a way of being plant in a particular ecological context. Plants have no central nervous system, no brain to coordinate their activities, yet they demonstrate coordinated responses to environmental stimuli. A tree under attack by insects in one branch will send defensive compounds to undamaged branches. A strawberry plant will direct more resources to runners that have found nutrient-rich soil. A root system will reorient its growth to avoid toxic soil patches. These whole organism responses occur through the complex signaling networks that integrate information from throughout the plant. As your awareness begins to fade toward dreams, consider the plants that thrive without light. Deep in caves and other perpetually dark environments, certain fungi and bacteria can capture energy from chemical reactions rather than from sunlight. While not plants in the strict botanical sense, these organisms represent another path in the great diversification of life, one that doesn't depend on the light-capturing process that powers most of Earth's ecosystems. True plants, however, all share the ability to photosynthesize, to capture light energy and use it to build sugars from carbon dioxide and water. This process is so fundamental to plant identity that when certain sea slugs consume algae, they can incorporate the algal chloroplasts into their own tissues and become temporarily photosynthetic themselves. Animals using a stolen plant technology to capture sunlight. The ceaseless creativity of a plant evolution has produced countless strategies for survival. Some orchids have no chlorophyll at all, instead drawing their nutrition from fungal partners that connect them to green plants. These mycoheterotrophic orchids effectively parasitize the fungal network, taking resources ultimately derived from other plants' photosynthesis. They appear ghostly white, pink or yellow in the forest understory, their lack of green revealing their unusual nutritional strategy. Other plants supplement their energy intake by trapping and digesting animals. Carnivorous plants like sundews, pitcher plants, bladderworts, and Venus flytraps have evolved elaborate structures to attract, capture, and digest insects and other small prey. They typically grow in nutrient-poor environments like bogs and nutrient-poor wetlands, where the nitrogen and phosphorus obtained from their prey provide essential nutrients that are scarce in the soil. The methods these carnivorous plants use to capture prey are diverse and ingenious. Sundews have leaves covered with glistening droplets on the tips of hair-like structures. These droplets contain both attractive nectar and sticky mucilage that traps insects. Once an insect is caught, the hairs slowly curl inward, bringing the prey into contact with digestive enzymes. Pitcher plants create deep vessels filled with digestive fluid, their rims slippery with nectar to lure insects that then fall into the liquid below. Bladderworts have underwater suction traps that can snare tiny aquatic organisms in a fraction of a second when triggered. Plants have developed partnerships with animals that extend beyond pollination and seed dispersal. Ants farm aphids, protecting them from predators and milking them for the sweet honeydew they produce. In return, the ants protect their host plants from other herbivores that might cause more significant damage. Some acacia trees in Africa and Central America provide hollow thorns as housing for ants and produce nectar specifically to feed them. The resident ants aggressively attack any herbivores that approach the tree and even clear competing vegetation from the surrounding area. The relationship between plants and fungi reaches its most elaborate development in mycorrhizal networks, where fungal filaments connect multiple plants of different species, creating a shared infrastructure for resource exchange. Through these networks, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients can move from plants with excess to those in need. Research suggests that older, larger mother trees may preferentially direct resources to their own offspring, recognizing them through chemical signals exchanged through the fungal partners. These underground networks function as a kind of commons, a shared resource that benefits the plant community as a whole. Some plants appear to be more generous participants, contributing more carbon to the network than they receive, while others are net receivers. During stressful conditions like drought, the network may help sustain vulnerable individuals that might otherwise die, maintaining the diversity of the plant community. As you drift toward a deeper rest, imagine the ancient partnerships between plants and humans. Archaeological evidence shows that humans have used plants for medicine for at least 60,000 years. Indigenous knowledge of medicinal plants often includes sophisticated understanding of proper harvesting techniques, preparation methods, dosages, and contraindications. This knowledge, developed through careful observation over countless generations, has been the foundation for many modern pharmaceuticals. Plant medicines work through complex mixtures of compounds that often act synergistically, multiple chemicals working together to produce effect greater than any single compound could achieve. This complexity can make plant medicines difficult to study using conventional pharmaceutical research methods, which typically isolate and test single compounds. Yet, for many conditions, whole plant remedies remain effective where single compound drugs have limitations or side effects. Beyond medicine, plants have provided humans with technologies that transformed societies. Paper, first developed in China around 2000 years ago, revolutionized record keeping and knowledge transmission. Sailing ships built of wood and propelled by wind, caught in plant fiber sails, connected distant cultures and economies. Cotton textiles, lighter and more comfortable than animal skins or wool, changed clothing traditions worldwide. Rubber from the Hevea tree made possible countless industrial applications from tires to electrical insulation. Plants have shaped human spiritual and aesthetic experiences across cultures and throughout history. Gardens offer spaces for contemplation, connection with nature, and artistic expression. Sacred groves provide settings for ritual and worship. Individual plants like the lotus, olive, or cedar carry symbolic meanings that have enriched human spiritual traditions for millennia. The beauty of flowers and the majesty of ancient trees inspire art, poetry, and music that express something profound about the human experience of life. In modern urban environments, where many people have limited contact with diverse plant communities, the psychological benefits of plant interaction become increasingly apparent. Studies show that hospital patients recover more quickly when their rooms have views of trees. Office workers with plants visible from their desk report higher job satisfaction and demonstrate greater productivity. Children who play in natural areas with diverse vegetation show better concentration and reduced symptoms of attention disorders compared to those who play in built environments without plants. These benefits may relate to a concept called biophilia, the idea that humans have an innate affinity for other living things, particularly plants, that stems from our evolutionary history. For most of human existence, people lived in close daily contact with plants, depending on them for food, medicine, shelter, tools, and fuel. This long shared history may have shaped human psychology in ways that make plant interaction necessary for optimal mental health and cognitive function. As your consciousness continues to quiet, consider the plants that have shaped the landscapes where human cultures developed. The cedar forests of Lebanon, now reduced to small remnants, provided timber for ancient shipbuilding and construction. The vast prairies of North America, maintained by indigenous burning practices for thousands of years, supported diverse human communities before being converted to agricultural land by European settlers. The rice terraces of Southeast Asia transformed hillsides into productive agricultural systems that have sustained dense human populations for centuries. Human modification of plant communities has accelerated dramatically in recent centuries. Agriculture now occupies approximately 38% of Earth's land surface, replacing diverse natural plant communities with a limited number of crop species. Forests have been reduced by about one-third from their pre-agricultural extent. Urban and suburban development covers increasing areas, often with limited plant diversity dominated by non-native ornamental species. These changes have profound implications for both ecological functioning and human well-being. Efforts to restore diverse native plant communities face significant challenges but show promising results in many regions. Prairie restoration in the American Midwest, reforestation in Costa Rica, mangrove rehabilitation in Southeast Asia, these and many other projects demonstrate that with appropriate techniques and long-term commitment, damaged ecosystems can recover much of their structure and function. The returned plant communities provide habitat for wildlife, enhance soil health, improve water quality, sequester carbon, and offer spaces for human recreation and spiritual renewal. Indigenous and traditional knowledge about plants plays a crucial role in conservation efforts. Communities that have maintained long-term relationships with local plant species often possess detailed understanding of plant behaviors, habitat requirements, interspecies relationships, and sustainable harvesting techniques. When this knowledge is respected and incorporated into conservation planning, outcomes tend to be more successful than approaches that rely solely on academic ecological science. The future relationship between humans and plants will be shaped by our growing understanding of plant intelligence and communication, by the challenges of climate change and habitat loss, and by evolving human values regarding the natural world. As appreciation for plant sentience increases, more people may adopt attitudes of respect and reciprocity toward the plant kingdom, seeking relationships of mutual benefit rather than mere resource extraction. Innovative approaches to agriculture, forestry, and urban design could create systems where human needs are met while plant communities thrive. Agroforestry systems that combine trees, shrubs, and crops in integrated polycultures can produce food while maintaining habitat connectivity and soil health. Urban forests and gardens can provide food, beauty, shade, and wildlife habitat, while connecting city dwellers with the cycles and rhythms of plant life. Renewable plant-based materials can replace petroleum-derived plastics and synthetic fibers, reducing pollution while creating markets for sustainably grown plant products. As sleep approaches, imagine a world where human communities live in conscious relationship with the plant kingdom, where forests are respected as intelligent communities rather than merely resources, where agriculture works with plant communication networks rather than disrupting them, where urban spaces integrate diverse plant life as essential infrastructure rather than optional decoration. This vision is neither simple nor easy to achieve, but it offers a path toward greater ecological health and human well-being. The night deepens around you, and the plants outside continue their quiet existence, sensing, responding, communicating in ways we are only beginning to understand. They have no eyes to see the stars, no ears to hear the night sounds, yet they are aware of their world in their own way. They process information, make decisions, remember past events, and prepare for future conditions. They form relationships with other organisms, from the smallest soil bacteria to the largest mammals. They solve problems without a brain, communicate without a voice, and move without muscles. In the gentle darkness, as your consciousness drifts toward dreams, know that you are surrounded by these quiet intelligences, these beings that have shaped Earth's systems for hundreds of millions of years, that have overcome countless challenges through evolutionary innovation, that have formed the foundation for all terrestrial life. The plant world exists alongside our human world, intersecting with it in countless ways, supporting it with every breath we take. As the boundary between wakefulness and sleep softens, carry with you this awareness of the green world, not as a backdrop to human activity, but as a community of beings with their own forms of awareness and agency. Their patience, resilience, and interconnectedness offer wisdom for human lives often characterized by hurry, separation, and individual striving. The ancient intelligence of plants reminds us that we are part of a living world far older and more complex than human civilization, a world where countless forms of awareness interact in an ever-changing dance of relationship. And so you rest, breathing air purified by plants, your body nourished by their substances, your home likely built partly from their materials, your medicines often derived from their chemistry. This relationship, this deep interdependence between human and plant, continues as it has for countless generations of our ancestors, a quiet partnership that sustains life on Earth. Sleep comes gently, cradled in the knowledge of this ancient bond, this ongoing conversation between species that flows beneath the surface of conscious awareness, connecting all living beings in the great web of existence.